trade has finally happened. It's PT Sports 84 here, breaking down the new official NBA 2K24 roster update that features yesterday's three-team trade between the Portland Trailblazers, the Milwaukee Bucks, and the Phoenix Suns. We're going to jump right into it. As you can see, Damian Lillard is added to the Milwaukee Bucks here. They did update Pat Connaughton's position to shooting guard. I think he is actually going to be the starter. It's between him and Marjan Beauchamp. I know they were high on Beauchamp. From my understanding, Portland was trying to get Beauchamp in the trade, but they weren't able to get him. So we'll see how he pans out. He pretty much can battle Connaughton for that starting position. Whoever loses will likely be the backup three. I think Malik Beasley will end up coming off the bench as a scorer there. I think he can excel in that role. The question still remains for them what they're going to do at the point guard spot as a backup. They played Andre Jackson Jr. at the wing spot in Summer League, so I don't really think that he's an option to shift down, although he can play there. They do have some two-way guys in Ty Washington, who got sparing playing time last year for Houston. Lindell Wigginton, obviously up and down on a two-way contract last year as well. I think they'd be better off, obviously, going to the free agent market, trying to get a point guard. Campaign obviously sticks out as an option for them. Maybe even Jalen Noel. He's kind of a combo guard, more of a 2 than a 1. I don't know that necessarily helps them. I don't want to see George Hill. You could see maybe Ish Smith as an emergency option. Skylar Mays is one I wanted to mention real quick. I think Skylar Mays makes it back to Portland. Obviously, he ended the year last year with Portland on a hardship, and he did really well. I think he ends up back on the roster as a third-string point guard there. But, so Damian Lillard now paired with Giannis Antetokounmpo. That is going to be deadly. The half-court offense is going to be insane because where they had trouble scoring versus Boston last year, they won't have that now. The only difference is defensively, who are you going to have to guard the other team's best wing? That's where I think Middleton's going to have to step up. Andre Jackson is a defender where he can play good defense, but he's not ready. Jay Crowder's going to have to show something. He was out of shape last year going into the playoffs, so hopefully he'll be able to contribute more this year. In the front court is where they're going to excel defensively. You've got Lopez there. Obviously, Giannis can help. Bobby Portis on offense can give you a boost, as he always does. In spot minutes, I think you're going to see Robin Lopez play as well. The biggest question mark for me is what is this bench lineup going to be able to do to help them? I think there'll be buyout candidate or market candidates that'll want to go to Milwaukee later in the season. So we'll see what those look like when you get around the March time frame. But I like it for Milwaukee. A lot of people don't necessarily. They're not as high on Dame because you lose Drew Holiday. But I think it really, really helps them. Dame Lillard being the offensive juggernaut that he is really going to help. Let's move over to let's talk about Phoenix first. So Phoenix, as you can see in the roster update, they did not update Bradley Beal still to point guard. I'm going to be a little critical. I know 2K does this every year. They wait till the first ratings update to update positions, which I still don't understand the logic behind that because we already know what the position changes are for a lot of these guys. And if 2K themselves, they do it every year, they run a simulation before the season starts and they post it to their social media, and it's awful. It's because they don't have these guys properly in positions that'll make the simulation go a little bit different than what would normally happen. So Brad Beal being a point guard would be one of the key components. But anyway, so um, obviously Booker is better playmaker, but I think they want Booker to be off the ball so he doesn't have as much exhaustion being on the ball, having to do both. Both Beal and Booker will handle it a lot. Obviously, KD as well. So we'll see how that shakes out. But as far as the trade goes, Phoenix actually gets Yusuf Nurkic from Portland. He won't want to score as much, let's put it that way, as much as DeAndre Ayton wanted, so he'll fit more into the offense of just playing a role, get some rebounds, give some post defense, things like that. Nasir Little comes over. He's more of a 3, so they'll have to update his position. He had injuries. I believe it was his shoulder last year that he injured, and then that was what kind of kept him out for a good bit of the season. He is still kind of an unknown. I think he can get some minutes, obviously, as a backup small forward. But I think what happens is Damian Lee will shift up to small forward and be the one that can kind of stretch the floor. Okogie still starts, I think, at the 3 to be that perimeter defender. And then you got Durant at the power forward. They got the guy they wanted in Grayson Allen, more of a three-point shooter there. Not the greatest defender. They've wanted him for a couple years. He was able to start with the Grizzlies and the Bucks. He's not going to start, obviously, in Phoenix. His role will be, toned down from what it was. But I think he's a good complementary guy that you can put in the rotation as need be. Because you do have Eric Gordon, who right now, on paper, Eric Gordon would kind of be penciled in as a backup guard. I don't think he would necessarily play point guard per se, because I think they'll shift Booker and Beal in between those spots and then spot minutes for Jordan Goodwin. But I think that Gordon can obviously give you that outside threat that you need at the 2 guard spot as needed, and he'll kind of flip-flop with Grayson Allen in that role. Last but not least, in the trade, Keon Johnson. He's a high flyer, been playing more of a point guard role for Portland. I don't know that he makes the team. It's rumored that both he and Ish Wainwright would be the ones that are cut in order to make room on the roster, because right now Phoenix has 2 players above the 15-man standard contract roster limit. So Wainwright's one that I think could come back on another 2-way contract for them because they really like him. Or he could just move on. Who knows? I like the trade for Phoenix because it gives them more depth. That was what I was worried about when I was looking at the roster previously. That's pretty much solved now. They have good size up front. The perimeter, I mean, we can debate because Okogie is only like 6'4", 6'5". Little is 6'5". So you kind of have to figure it out there. A little bit smaller on the wing, but they do have shooting and defense kind of penciled in there. So we'll see how that works out as far as the rotation goes. Let's jump over to Portland, excuse me. Portland gets Drew Holiday in this deal. Obviously, everybody's seen the reports. Holiday is going to be immediately moved. I would hope it's before Media Day, which is Tuesday. Hopefully they can get a deal done. I'm fingers crossed that somehow a miracle happens and my Sixers can get him. James Harden can move to the Clippers or something, and some pieces go back to Portland. It's probably wishful thinking, but I would love to see Holiday back in Philly. That would be a great pairing with Tyrese Maxey in the backcourt. But in the meantime, with the trade happening, you get Tamani Kamara. He's more of a kind of project player. I don't think he's going to play a ton right up front. So he kind of does exactly what Jabari Walker is going to be able to do. So I don't know that they, have enough time with trying to get Chris Murray some time as a backup. You've got Kevin Knox, who they brought back, who they're going to want to see a little bit of minutes for. He's more of a small forward, though. We'll see. But the big prize here is DeAndre Ayton. Obviously, he fizzled down the stretch with Phoenix. He didn't get engaged just because he didn't get the ball on offense the way he wanted. He pouted, and then his defense took a hit. I think you'll see a resurgence from him in Portland. Obviously, playing with dynamic guards in Scoot Henderson, who now inherits the point guard spot as he should, along with Anthony Simons and Shaden Sharp. All of those guys can get him the ball. They are scorers in their own right as well, so we'll have to see how the pecking order goes. Don't forget that we also still have, for the time being, Jeremy Grant there as a scorer as well. Somebody that nobody is talking about very often is Ryan Rupert. I think that obviously he's not going to play as much as Sharp, Simons, and Henderson, but I like his versatility as far as his defense and playmaking. Tail Dog, yeah, Ayton's not great at anything. He's solid. That's the thing. For me, it's almost like when you're looking at a high school player, whenever their offense isn't, even some college players, when their offense isn't going, everything else goes downhill. And that's kind of what happens with Ayton. He doesn't get engaged on the defensive end to block shots or do anything rebounding-wise unless his offense is going, and that's what worries about. That's what I worry about with him. But yeah, so I'm intrigued by Chris Murray, though. He's one that I'm going to look out for. I like Rupert, like I said, defensively, being able to play make, things like that. So we'll see. The thing I'm curious about is what exactly they're going to get back for Holiday. You don't want to bring anything to the backcourt because you already have that. Maybe another wing. I'll be also curious to see if Sharp starts at the 3. That would make sense because you don't really want to start Thibault unless you're really wanting a defender there. Thibault's more of a backup that can be in the rotation. If you're really going to go for a youth movement, you might as well start Shaden Sharp at the 3. That gets him minutes, and that's what you want. So we'll see kind of what happens. But the thing that I'm looking for with Portland is the development of guys. Now they have roster spots, so they're going to have to sign some more players. Thanks for watching, Tyler. If I missed anybody, sorry. I'm kind of having a look down as I'm recording the video because I'm just making sure I didn't miss anybody on my notes. So excuse me if I missed you. Good morning, everybody that's watching. Hope everybody's well. Thanks for tuning in, as always. But yeah, so Portland is intriguing. Obviously, they're going to be a League Pass watch for sure. I'll definitely be tuning in. Obviously, if you got 2K, the championship bundle, then you got the League Pass included. That's what I did just to save the $50 on that. So it's always a good deal in my opinion. But let's go to other teams. I wanted to talk about some things. Position changes being one of them. Like I mentioned earlier, 2K's really got to figure out the positions before the first roster update comes out because waiting until the first ratings update 2 weeks into the season just doesn't cut it, in my opinion. Like, you got Jordan Poole as a point guard. Obviously, he's the shooting guard. Like, Kuzma and Adbia could definitely switch positions. I mean, that's just one, but just I don't like it. I don't like that we have to wait so long. Obviously, yes, we can switch our own positions and make our own custom rosters and do all that stuff, but why? Like, why should we have to wait? Like, in my opinion, yes, it could throw off my team and all that stuff, but if you're setting it for the opening night roster and you're setting the positions correctly and the lineup rotations as best you can, then that should, appease most people to start their my career or my NBA, whatever direction they want to go. But instead they wait that time for the ratings update, which makes zero sense to me. But anyway, let's talk about Golden State. They made some moves. Basically, Rodney McGruder and Rudy Gay are going to compete for the 14th roster spot. I would not be shocked if Rudy Gay gets it, just to have another versatile guy there. I don't really see Magruder having a role because you've got to play the rookie in Podziemski, and then you've also got to find minutes for Moses Moody, who looked good last year. And don't forget, you also have Gary Payton II there as well, who's their versatile defender. So they already have wings. So it would make sense for Rudy Gay to be the choice there. They like Trace Jackson Davis. I'm going to try to find a role for him in some minutes as well. And the curious thing is what the lineup's going to look like. I believe it's best with Chris Paul coming off the bench. His change of pace could maybe help the second unit. In the first unit, if he's running the point guard spot, it takes a lot away from what Draymond does as a initiator of the offense. So I don't know that Chris Paul coming down and jacking mid-range shots and slowing the pace down is really going to help them. I know it's going to hurt Chris Paul's ego, but he's got to come off the bench for this team to be most successful, in my opinion. Minnesota, they've got some guys on camp deals that are basically going to go to the G League, which is Tyrese Martin, Vic Krejci, guys like that. Now, they will have Jalen Clark as the other two-way spot because they just added back Matt Ryan. It looked like no offers really came up for anybody to take him on a standard roster spot, so he'll go back on a two-way. But I think with Matt Ryan, I think he's just got to get a little bit better as far as defensively can be consistent. Otherwise, it's going to be tough for him to get out of that two-way slot. Two players I'm intrigued by on Minnesota, Shake Milton. I think his role will expand. They got to change his second position as well. But I'm intrigued by him, and then I'm also intrigued by Leonard Miller. I don't think Leonard Miller probably plays a ton this year, but I think he's going to give effort. You're going to see a lot of hustle by him, and he's going to be sneaky good. So we'll see what happens there. OKC, the news came out yesterday with Oladipo. He won't be coming to camp at all. Basically, they don't have time for him to get healthy. They've got to make roster cuts as well. I think, obviously, he's definitely one of them. Then it comes down to Jeremiah Robinson-Earl, Aaron Wiggins. Those are two guys that I think very much could be in jeopardy. Jack White's another one. Bertans could be somebody that's a trade or buyout candidate as well. Trey Mann, another one. So they have just some decisions to make before the season starts. But one thing I want 2K to look at definitely is Josh Giddey's position with Jalen Williams. Jalen Williams is more of a 2. Giddey's more of a 3-4, and then you had Lou Dort play a little bit small ball 4 as well, or at least defend small ball 4s. Giddey was more of the offensive 4 in a hybrid role. So I'd like to see them kind of switch that around because with Jalen Williams' playmaking and IQ and stuff, you saw him kind of play more of a point forward role once Giddey was out of the game. So I'd like to see them replicate that more with him at the 2. We talked about Phoenix already. San Antonio, I'll be interested to see what happens with them. Obviously, Wembanyama needs to switch to power forward. That's been known since day one. I don't know why 2K even put him in at center. Reggie Bullock is not a power forward. He's a shooting guard, small forward. It'll be interesting to see who starts out of Jeremy Sohan and Keldon Johnson. You've got Devin Vassell. He'll definitely start. So I'll be intrigued to see what happens with San Antonio. I've noticed people have asked about the two-way contracts. They usually don't add them in if they don't already have them in the game until that opening night roster, which is the 24th. So they'll get in like Amani Bates, Amari Bailey. All those guys have scans in the game. They just have to add them. The PC guys get the game and are able to kind of export the files. So that's how I know they have scans already. There's maybe like 6 or 7 of the rookies that were in the second round that have official scans. So they'll get added in as well once those players get added on that opening night roster. Houston, they've got to figure out. Ben Thompson's a point guard. KPJ, I don't even think he's going to be on the team when the season starts, but he'll be the 2 if he is. They have a young nucleus. They just got to develop them and see what happens overall. So looking at, they're missing Jermaine Samuels as well. Toronto, they really missed out on Dame. They had a chance, but Masai Ujiri, in my opinion, is always trying to get that one extra player, or asset or whatever it is. And so Grady Dick was dangled in trades. Gary Trent Jr. was thrown out in trades as well. They did not want to part with Anunoby, which I think is going to come back to bite them, especially if he's trying to go elsewhere. It'll be an interesting mix with Dennis Schroeder as the point guard. I'll be curious to see if Barnes doesn't take over the point guard spot as a hybrid, like, forward role, and Schroeder comes off the bench. We'll see what happens with that. Going to the Pistons. Pistons got some decisions to make as far as Duran definitely starts, I think, but then they've got to figure out, does Asor Thompson, who is a small forward, not a 2-guard, if he starts, or Bogdanović starts at the 3. Livers is a power forward. Bagley's more of the center. Beef Stew is a power forward. That's what they wanted to do last year. So we'll see. Wiseman, I think he doesn't play as much as people think he might. And then, of course, you've got Kate Cunningham, who I think has a very good bounce-back season. Pelicans, they've just got to stay healthy. They're basically bringing back the same team as last year. We'll see what happens. I don't know who the hell put Jordan Hawkins in at the point guard spot and thought that was where he played. He is a 2-3, so they'll have to change that. Going over to the Pacers, same thing with Mathurin. He's a 3. He'll start, I believe, over Buddy Hield. And with the Pacers, Nembhard will play off the ball behind Bruce Brown, who will start. The Pacers, I think, could be intriguing this year. Obi Toppin's getting a starting role. Jalen Smith's a center, not a power forward. You could play Nwora on the wing a little bit more this year. So it'll be intriguing to see. I think they'll be a lot better. If Miles Turner and Toppin can figure it out as far as what role, maybe Turner is more of a stretch and then Toppin's more of the roll man. And that could work out because we already know in the short roll you're going to get Jarris Walker in that role. He's not really a shooter, so they've got to figure it out. And then coming off the bench, you've got Jalen Smith at center, and then Jarris Walker could work because Smith stretches the floor. You really can't play Isaiah Jackson with Jarris Walker. Moving over to the Nuggets, figuring out their rotation as far as the backups go is going to be key. Hunter Tyson's intriguing, but I think Zeke Naji's got to stay healthy. I think he's a big component of what they want to do. He can shoot it, so I'll be curious to see with Vlatko Konchar out for the year with injury, how they fill the other roles. Christian Brown is a 2, not a 3. Peyton Watson's a 3-4. Peyton Watson's going to have a huge role. Calvin Booth is high on him, so I think Watson can play kind of a hybrid defensive role. Can give you a little scoring if needed as well. So I'll be curious to see how that shakes out. And then my favorite on the team is Jalen Pickett. He's a point guard. I think he's going to get a good bit of minutes. I would not be shocked if he takes the spot of Reggie Jackson on the team because he's an older rookie. And so he'll be able to, I think, come right in and make a difference. Going over to the Nets, this team is where I struggle because obviously Ben Simmons is more of a point guard. So if you play him at point guard, say he starts, Dinwiddie plays the 2, Bridges plays the 3, and then Johnson plays the 4, then you've got O'Neal kind of playing the 3 as a backup, Finney-Smith the backup power forward, it just throws a lot of things off. There's a lot of question marks on where things are. Do you start Simmons and bring Dinwiddie as a 6-man as a point guard off the bench and then keep Bridges at the 2, Johnson at the 3? Like, you can go that direction. I'll be curious to kind of see how that shakes out in camp. Dallas Mavericks, they've got Luka at point. Obviously, Curry's backing up. How they have it right now, how they ran in the scrimmage the other day, it was Luka at the 1, Kyrie at the 2. Then they had Omax at the 3, which he is at 3. Then they had Grant Williams at the 4, and then Derek Lively at the starting center spot. The backups were Powell at center, Kleber at power forward, Josh Green at small forward, Tim Hardaway Jr. at the 2, and then they had Exum at the backup point guard spot. That's how I pretty much see it shaking out this season. And then fill-in roles for Jaden Hardy, Derek Jones Jr., Rashawn Holmes, those guys. They've got to figure out the positions for this team as well in 2K. Just no real effort put to them, if I'm being honest. Magic, they're going to have to move off some of these guards. There's too many guards on the team. First of all, Joe Ingles is a small forward. That'll alleviate one spot there. A lot of these guys are camp guys. In McClung, he might get a two-way spot. He's probably my favorite between him and Queen for the two-way spot, the last available two-way spot, I should say. And then Jonathan Isaac's a power forward. That moves up Ingles to the 3 there. Jet Howard, where's he going to play? And then how many minutes is Anthony Black going to play? Because you've got Anthony, you've got Fultz and Suggs and Harris all in the way at those positions. So that's a lot of glut at that position. But the big key is going to be the big jump or leap forward. If Banchero can do that, then that'd be great to see. Looks like you guys told me that Lindy Waters got a updated scan. I don't see his updated face. Where is the updated Lindy Waters face? Not really seeing it. This looks the same to me as it was before. Anybody know? Is it just not added to the game, or where did you guys see the Lindy Waters face? Did it get posted somewhere and they just haven't added it yet, or what's going on with that? If anybody could tell me, that'd be great. Let's go back to going through the teams. Talked about Orlando. The Lakers, I like how Magic Johnson still said the Lakers were the favorites in the West. That's interesting. It's going to come down to what are they getting out of D'Angelo Russell this year. If Vincent can keep the same momentum he had last year in Miami, can Austin Reeves still stay relevant? He looked really good on Team USA. LeBron James, obviously, he'll be 39 in December. We'll see. Is he going to take a decline anywhere? Are you going to keep Anthony Davis healthy? Are you going to get an engaged Christian Wood? A lot of those question marks. I would not pencil them in necessarily to be top in the West this season, like Magic Johnson did, but we'll see. Knicks, they've got to move quickly to point guard. I think Grimes and DiVincenzo battle for the starting shooting guard spot. They're wanting to play Josh Hart more at backup 4 in some minutes. That'll be interesting to see. Can Julius Randle produce this year? Because usually every other year is where he struggles. So we'll see what happens there. So Sacramento Kings, same thing. Are they going to be able to reproduce what they did last year? They get Sasha Vezenkov. I really like him. He does not dribble. If you've watched his tape, he doesn't put the ball on the floor a ton. He shoots it from 3. I figure somebody's trolling. Yeah, figures. But yeah, Vezenkov shoots it a lot from 3. I think he's going to be really good this year. Interesting enough, the Real 2K Insider brought up Harrison Barnes still has no badges in NBA 2K. Interesting choice by, I guess it's Zach Timmerman and then Mike Stoffer is the roster guy. I guess they figured that Barnes didn't need it or they just missed it. I'm not sure, but he definitely needs some badges there. But I'll be intrigued what Keegan Murray can do in his second season. Then Hoodie Pap, I'm not sure about the dunk animations. I haven't checked it, to be honest. I've been frustrated with the gameplay. It was great out of the box, and of course, they have to do their hot fixes and change the defense and the game speed and all that stuff. I have not checked the dunk animations glitch, so I'm not sure. Or bug, I should say. Be curious to see if Davion Mitchell can produce a little more on offense this year. Malik Monk, can he replicate last season? So those are the question marks for Sacramento. I don't know that they're as good as they were last year. I think they take a smidge of a step back, and that's not necessarily because of just them. Other teams got better as well. The Jazz, same thing. They were on a roll last season. What are they going to do this season? You've got question marks at point guard with Sexton, Horton Tucker, Dunn, all vying for minutes there. Then you've got Keontae George who can also play there. Agbaji and Clarkson battling for the starting shooting guard spot. You've got Lauri Markkanen in there. Can he produce his all-star form last year? Because John Collins is there now, so touches are going to be going his way. So we'll see excuse me, how that works out. Walker Kessler, can he have a good sophomore season? He overachieved, in my opinion, last year within the offense. And so now that he's kind of knocked down a little more, is he going to be able to pick his spots and still get points? Obviously, defensively, he's still going to be very good, but I'll be curious to see what happens offensively. And then what kind of role is Taylor Hendricks going to have with Keontae George as well? Bryce Sensabaugh is going to take a little bit because of his injury, so I don't think he plays a ton right out the gate. Simone Fontecchio as well. I think he's going to be able to get a role as the backup, but how many minutes is he really going to play? Going to the Charlotte Hornets, their big acquisition is obviously with Brandon Miller. Where's Brandon Miller going to play? Off the bench? Do you start him to start out the year because Bridges is suspended for 10 games? Bridges is a huge acquisition coming back because of his chemistry with LaMelo Ball. P.J. Washington got his money, but it didn't seem like they highly valued him. They wanted him back at the right price. So does Miller start at the 4 at the beginning of the year, and then Washington just comes off the bench, and then they figure it out later? Because Brandon Miller did play at the 4 a lot in Summer League. I didn't like him at the 4 personally, but maybe that's something they want to go to. Mark Williams, what are you getting in his second year? And then Kai Jones, we've all seen the videos in the offseason. I don't know that he makes the team if there's cuts to make. Nick Smith Jr., I don't know that he plays a ton, to be honest. He's more of a point guard. They're missing Amari Bailey, like I mentioned earlier. He is more of the 2. Bailey is. Smith played more of the 1. He could play the 2 as well, but I think he's better as a 1. James Bouknight has another year to try to prove himself as well. And then what happens with Terry Rozier and Gordon Hayward? Because there seems like a lot of glut at these positions that they'll want to open up at some point. But Mitch Kupchak is the GM, and I'm not that sold on him as a GM. I just never been a fan. We'll see. Miami Heat, they didn't get what's up, Tico? They didn't get Dame Lillard, so now do they pivot to Drew Holiday and try to get him, or do they play Tyler Hero at the point guard spot and then Josh Richardson at the 2. They did make a move yesterday, waiving Jamari Boye. They brought on R.J. Hampton, who we know started out with Denver, was traded to the Magic, and then played with the Pistons last year. He's on a two-way now, so we'll see what happens with him. I mean, they have depth on the team as far as, some guys they want to figure out, like Jovic and Jaquez, things like that. But overall, they're pretty thin. If they're thinking that they're the best, one of the better teams in the East, I think you got to question that at this point, because you can't start 37-year-old Kyle Lowry at point guard and expect him to stay healthy all season. It's just not, going to happen. So I think Holiday makes a lot of sense here, but also they waited on Dame and they missed out on some free agents. So I think that's going to bite them in the butt a little bit. I think they're going to be right around where they were, 6 to 8, seed, as far as the playoffs go. We'll see unless something drastic changes. Hawks, same thing. I think they're going to be right there in that 6 to 8 range, maybe even, 9. They have Quinn Snyder another year, with a full year this time with him. You've got to prioritize Okongwu playing, so Capella could be a trade candidate at some point. Jalen Johnson, I know that Quinn Snyder likes him. I would not be shocked to see Sadiq Bey come off the bench and then Jalen Johnson start at power forward, because he's more of a hybrid forward that Quinn Snyder really, really enjoyed playing last year. You could tell he was coaching him up during games and things like that. Now, I do think Bey starts, but it wouldn't shock me if Johnson does start. AJ Griffin, another year of development. I think he'll do him well. They got a veteran in Wes Matthews to help the locker room. They've got to figure out Kobe Buffkin as a point guard, because they've got Bogdanovich at the 2. Buffkin playing point guard is going to help him, but I didn't like Buffkin not being able to separate as easily in Summer League. It could be just getting used to the speed of the NBA, so I'll give him a pass. But we'll see. But it all comes down to Murray and Trey, what they're going to do as far as a backcourt. What's going on, Hugo? We'll see. Grizzlies, John Morant is out, obviously suspended for the start of the year. They will actually get, for those that don't know, they get a designated player slot because of the suspension. So it's basically kind of like a hardship, more or less, which they'll waive Shaquille Harrison in camp, I believe, and then bring him back as kind of the replacement for Morant for those games that Morant is out. The question mark is, does Bain shift up to small forward and then Kennard start at the 2 next to Marcus Smart at the point guard spot? Or does somebody else take that spot like David Roddy or Zaire Williams, and then Bain stays at the 2 with Kennard coming off the bench? Those question marks have to be answered. And then what is the health of Steven Adams going to look like going into the season? Because obviously we know he was out for a portion of last year. Brandon Clark's out for probably most of the season with injury, so I'll look for Xavier Tillman to fill a big role this year. Another year for Santi Aldama to step up and play a big role as well. They've got to figure out with Jake LaRavia and David Roddy which of the two is going to pan out. Hopefully both do, but I think Roddy plays more of the bigger role for them. Big body Roddy, as he's called. So Clippers, they're still in flux in my opinion, because they could make a move for James Harden and not give up many pieces, mainly like a Amir Coffey, Marcus Morris, and Robert Covington type package with maybe a pick thrown in somewhere, and that get it done. But basically we know what we're going to get out of them. They've got to move Norman Powell to the 2 guard in the roster. I don't know how they didn't know that they brought on Kenya Martin Jr. to play the backup 3. Why you would keep Powell there, I don't know. But anyway, it's going to come down to the health of Paul George and Kawhi, that is how far they go. Can Westbrook still fit in without trying to take on a more expanded role? What's up, Razor? Yeah, nothing into the classics, of course. We already know the answer to that. Terrence Mann, a lot of teams want him, but doesn't seem like the Clippers want to come off of him. Bones Highland, again, more of a hybrid scorer. He'll fill a limited role there for them, I think. Going to the Celtics, they're a trade candidate for Holiday as well. Um, I laugh because I see people just saying, well, they could do Brogdon straight up for Holiday. Not quite. It would be Brogdon. They'd have to throw in Horford as well, or you'd have to do Robert Williams. I don't think that makes sense for them overall. Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on, why they don't have Lamar Stevens on the roster, but then they added Jordan Shackle to the roster. Lamar Stevens, I thought, was on the roster the other day, if I'm not mistaken. Did he go back to the free agent pool by chance? Let's see. Yeah, I guess they put him back to the free agent pool. Am I mistaken that he was on the roster the other day on the Celtics? Maybe it's just me. We'll see. Yeah, good point, Hoodie. Harden and Holiday's contracts match, so Lamar was never added. Okay. Interesting. But let me switch that back. Okay, so looking at the Celtics, if they did get Holiday, that fills their point guard role perfectly. They've got to change positions for them as well. Looking at it, they don't have the two-way designation there. Apparently, if you run a MyNBA, there's some kind of issue with the two-way designation for the third two-way spot. I've heard, I haven't tested it myself, but I've heard two scenarios. One, the third two-way disappears in MyNBA, and then the second issue is that it takes off the third designation in MyNBA. So there must be some kind of bug, and that's why 2K is not adding the third two-way designation for players, because if you notice on all the rosters, they don't have it for anyone. So that must be the reason why that's not added there. But yeah, we'll see what happens. I'll be curious, definitely to see. I think Horford should move to center. Personally, if I was looking at the roster, Jordan Walsh needs to be a small forward as well. There. Looking at the Cavs, the Cavs' big acquisition was Max Strus, who will start at the 3. At least they got that position right. We'll see. They didn't really do a ton that kind of leaped off the charts, but they do have like Karis LeVert coming off the bench. Isaac Okoro is a defender off the bench, so we'll see. They get Georges Niang, who can stretch the floor. I don't think he makes a huge difference as far as points go, but he'll be a good locker room guy, can hit some threes here and there for sure. The Bulls, their biggest question mark is at point guard. First of all, the Bulls need their positions changed. DeRozan's a small forward and Levine's a 2. That's first and foremost. Once that's out of the way, then you figure out the point guard spot. Obviously, Lonzo Ball's out for the year, but Javon Carter's brought in. Then from everything I've heard and read as far as the Bulls beat writers, it's between Caruso, White, and Carter for the point guard role, which would shift Sunmu to the 2. And then my guess is going to be between White and Carter, and then Caruso kind of plays more of the hybrid 2, 3, and the 1 in combination like he did last year. So we'll see. The Bulls have a lot of faith in themselves. Obviously, in my opinion, what made them so good was the versatility of Lonzo Ball on defense and the ability to stretch the floor on offense. But without him there, we'll see, because Javon Carter is not somebody that brings the ball up a ton. If you watch Milwaukee last year, he was not a facilitator in the offense. So we'll see how that shakes out. We talked about Milwaukee already. And then last but not least is my Sixers. I went James Harden gone yesterday, but we'll see what happens. I don't think bringing him to camp is a good idea. They've got to figure something out before Tuesday. I like the Patrick Beverley pickup for the locker room, and then mentoring Tyrese Maxey, and then going from there. I like Kelly Oubre as a bench scorer there. That's a huge upgrade. They've got some decisions to make because they've got to cut contracts as well. I like Philip Petrusev as a backup. I think Harrell, because of the injury designation, should be the one that gets cut there. And then you also figure out what you're going to do with Paul Reed as a backup. I think you could technically play Daniel House as a small ball 4 in some spots, but you really want to have Reed kind of develop a 3-point shot from the corner to be able to play that backup 4. And then you got Bamba, of course, there backing up Embiid as need be. But I like the Sixers. Obviously, right now with James Harden's situation, we have no idea what they're going to look like once the season gets rolling. My hope and dream is Jrue Holiday in there. And then that would be really, really good. Move Harden, attach Korkmaz if you can as well. Get him a change of scenery, and then go from there. But we'll see what happens. Basically looking at the roster, one thing I did want to draw attention. I brought it up on my Twitter. But I don't think a lot of people really paid attention to it. So, looking at the spot up 3-pointers, do you guys see a pattern here? 99s, 95s, 90s, 80, 75. Like, it's too strong in this category, in my opinion. That's why a lot of threes get launched in the game. It just doesn't make sense to have it. It's every team is this way. Look at that. Like, even for non-shooters, because Jason Preston isn't necessarily like a lights-out 3-point shooter, but he has 95 spot-up 3. Like, there's no reason across this entire roster, and this is the default roster, for this to be that way. Like, and then you look at the 3-point, this is how often in simulated games they would take 3-pointers. You've got the off-screen threes. Those are okay, but the spot ups seem like they're just extremely high this year. So that's definitely something to look at for sure. The step back threes are high even for big men. Like, there's no reason that big men should have 25 step back 3. The scale is 0 that you can go limited to. I know that because those that don't know, a few years ago I worked on the tendencies, so I know what the scale is limited to because I was in on the emails as far as that goes. Like, there's no reason Rudy Gobert 25 step back 3. Like, this is why the gameplay engine does a lot of wonky stuff. So you got to play with the tendencies in order to fix that. Like, a transition pull up 3 for Naz Reid isn't going to happen. Like, drive pull up 3. Like, why are these high for big men? Like, it shouldn't be that way. The tendencies need a lot of work. Last year they were better, but they need a lot of work this year. Badges got reworked, but there's a ton of guys that have 0 badges that need them. I brought up Harrison Barnes earlier. Really, it's, going through the roster and saying, hey, let's do one sweep during the summer. That way we have them set for the beginning of the year. And then somewhere like All-Star Weekend, when there's not any NBA action, let's do a massive roster update and update the badges accordingly there. So you get, correct badges at the beginning of the year and updated badges at the middle tail end of the year. That would make the most sense to me. But, it is what it is. I don't know. What's up, Brandon? You're looking for bigs to space to the 3-point line. So the number one thing for bigs to go to the 3-point line first and foremost is two things. First is this roll versus pop. So big men that shoot. Well, first of all, look at this. This is a egregious example. Bradley Beal should not have an 85 roll to the basket. So the higher the value, the more they're going to roll. The lower the value, the more they'll pop. Why does he have an 85? Somebody like Drew Eubanks or Chimezie Metu should have high ratings there. But somebody like a Brad Beal should have a 0. He's a guard. He's not rolling. They also don't have the spot versus cut. That's another one. If you're in transition, the higher the value, the more they're going to go to the three-point line. The lower the value, the more they're going to cut to the basket. And then it also depends on the play discipline of that particular player, because if it's high, they're going to follow the play to a T. If it's lower, then they're going to branch out and try to score on their own. But also, what you want to look at is going over to the playbooks and make sure there's three-point plays for big men in it, like pick and fades. But then you also want to make sure that the play types match up. These play types are a struggle every year. They might be better this year. I'd have to dive into them. I haven't gotten to that portion yet. I'm still working on tendencies to get that feedback into 2K, hopefully for a change. But we'll see. But those are the things I would change, is the roll versus pop. Another one you could look at is, in certain cases, is for bigs to take threes. Spacing the floor is, where is it? The spot up mid. You can lower that down and then do the spot up, keep the spot up 3 a little higher for them if they're a stretch big, and that's how you want it. You could also do make sure the contested threes, so they'll shoot them if they're semi-contested, make sure those are adjusted as well. So a lot kind of goes hand in hand with it overall. But yeah, so pretty decent roster update. At least they got the Dame trade in. Now we just count the hours till hopefully a Holiday trade or a James Harden trade, something in that nature overall. So no retro changes. I went through the roster and just kind of looked. Just some of the feedback I had was like making sure Caldwell Jones gets shifted to center since he was a starter, not Darryl Dawkins. Just some small things here and there throughout the roster, but then some missing players added in. Same for the eras. Like Shannon Brown needs his adjustment to his hair. He doesn't have the braids in the LeBron era. He should have his lower cut like he does in the Mamba moments, but it just comes down to they have to change the ID to match the Mamba moments version. The draft classes, we're going to take a look. I always check the draft classes based on one draft class. So bear with me just a second. So I always check it based on the 2001 draft because they have Michael Bradley's skin tone wrong again. So that's how I know if they still haven't touched anything. So Michael Bradley is still the wrong skin tone here like he was last year. They updated it in the Eras roster but didn't update it here. So there's tons of players missing. If you go into Operation Sports, somebody put a thread that said who's missing in the draft classes. And so I put all the players missing on a list and then submitted that so everybody kind of knows what's going on. I submitted my bugs to 2K for the draft classes coming out generic and stuff like that, so we'll see when that gets fixed. But nothing added to the eras or anything like that. I already checked that before I went into the current roster. But if you guys like this video, please hit the like button. It really, really helps me. Make sure it takes a second just to hit it. Also, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I really appreciate everybody's support. You guys have really been tuning in whenever I do videos. Coming up starting on Monday, I'm going to do team previews and just break down each of the teams, their depth charts, what I think each player's role is going to be, and do those. I'm going to do them by division, and so want to knock those out. Then when we get into October, obviously we're going to have the patch that comes out with player likeness updates the week of the 16th through 20th, as well as the opening night roster there as well. Got some other stuff in the works of my own custom roster. I've been working on some faces for players, so going to get those videos out sometime either later this week or early next week, just highlighting a few players that I've added to the rosters. That way you can take them from my roster and add them to yours if you want to make a custom roster for the different eras. I already showed off my current roster caps, so those are there. I've got to update the roster today or tomorrow whenever I have a little more time and get a new upload so that way you guys can get the latest and greatest. But thanks again for everybody's support. Really, really appreciate it. I hopefully will be back tomorrow with another video of some sort. Not quite sure what I'm going to pick yet for the video, but something will be out tomorrow. And then, of course, if we get a holiday trade or Harden trade or something like that, I'll have an instant reaction to it. So thanks again, everybody, for the support, and I'll talk to you next time.